Coming up on Network Africa, Nigeria's acting president Yemi Osinbajo represents Nigeria at the 29th Ordinary Session of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Norwegian Refugee Council says over 700 people have died from cholera in Somalia. And later, an inspiring story about a blind journalist, Jean-Pascal Lingam, who's been able to use his disability to achieve success. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joke Rogers. Let's start with a look at stories that made headlines over the weekend.
Leaders of the G5 Sahel bloc, Mali, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, Niger and Chad were expected to launch a new multinational force at a meeting aimed at combating Islamist militant and illegal activities in the vast arid zone. Macron hopes the West African G5 Sahel force will be operational in a matter of weeks. Islamist militant groups, some with links to Al-Qaeda, seized control of Mali's desert north in 2012, while they were driven out of major cities and towns a year later by a French-led military intervention. They continue to carry out attacks against UN peacekeepers, Malian soldiers and civilian targets. The violence has spilled over into neighboring countries in West Africa's Sahel region, and Paris has deployed thousands of French troops to combat the militant under a cross-border operation known as Barkhane. Elsewhere, data in June showed the continent's most industrialized economy, South Africa, has slipped into recession as major sectors shrank, while political and policy uncertainty dragged business and consumer confidence to their worst levels in decades. Zuma called for radical solutions, albeit within the constitution, to redistribute land to the country's black majority. The president has drawn unprecedented criticism from senior ruling party members in recent weeks, and opposition party lawmakers will attempt to remove him through a secret ballot vote in the next motion of no confidence vote scheduled for August. The European Union's Commissioner for Migration, Dimitri Avramopoulos, said the bloc was willing to help ease the pressure for Italy, who has appealed to the EU for help in taking in African migrants. Italy has even raised the possibility of closing its port to humanitarian rescue ships to pressure EU partners. Italy has brought in over 500,000 boat migrants since 2014, and a record 181,000 came last year. This year, arrivals are up to 14% from the same period last year to 75,000.
Nigeria's acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is attending the 29th Ordinary Session of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He joins other African heads of state and governments at the meeting. The two-day summit will be deliberating on a set of key issues, including AU financing and institutional reform and terrorism, one of the major challenges of the moment for the African Union. Another highlight of the summit is the fight for peace and security in the Sahel, South Sudan and Somalia. Professor Osinbajo is representing Nigeria at the opening session, which focuses on harnessing demographic dividends through investments in the youth. South Africa's Apex Court has handed down judgment against the Department of Home Affairs in a matter brought by lawyers for human rights acting on behalf of persons detained under Section 34, subsection 1 of South Africa's Immigration Act. The applicants had sought from the Pretoria High Court an order declaring that parts of that section of the Act were inconsistent with the Constitution and therefore invalid. The invalidity was said to be set to the extent that it had provisions that permitted the detention of foreign nationals for 30 days or more without automatic judicial intervention or the detainee appearing in person before a court.
The matter had come as an appeal and an application for the confirmation of invalidity granted by the Pretoria High Court. At the center of the suit is the contention by the Lawyers for Human Rights that Section 34, subsection 1 of the Immigration Act of South Africa, covering the deportation and detention of illegal foreign nationals, is inconsistent with Sections 12, subsection 1 and 35, 1D and 2D of the Constitution, covering the rights not to be detained without trial and rights of arrested, detained and accused persons, respectively. The state opposed the claims. Justice Christopher Jafta read the unanimous decision.
This court holds that the rights guaranteed by Sections 12 and 35(2) of the Constitution are enjoyed by everyone, including foreign nationals. Following a detailed analysis of the content and scope of those rights, as well as the meaning and reach of the impugned provisions, this court holds that the challenged provisions are indeed inconsistent with the Constitution. However, the court disagrees with the High Court on reading in. This court holds that reading in is not appropriate in view of the wide discretion conferred on immigration officers without any guidelines on how to exercise the power to arrest foreign nationals without a warrant and detain them pending deportation. Instead, this court opts for suspending the declaration of invalidity to enable Parliament to cure the defects in the Act. The suspension is, however, coupled with certain conditions to safeguard the rights of detainees.
There were 10 orders which included that any detained foreign national must be brought before a court within 48 hours. The Department of Home Affairs is also to pay the legal costs of the group. This is the culmination of 5 years of agitation by the Lawyers for Human Rights, and they are thrilled at the outcome.
We're very hopeful that this judgment will fix a lot of unlawfulness that we currently see in the manner in which immigration detention happens in the country. So it's a massive step forward towards the rule of law.
It really has a huge impact on thousands and thousands of people who are currently being detained without any judicial oversight. So it's really going to change a lot of people's lives.
Equally thrilled is Nigeria's Minister for Consular and Immigration Matters at the Consulate General in Johannesburg, Anthony Ogbe, who applauds the judgment but highlights another area of concern.
For somebody to just be in detention, you wouldn't know unless there's the person is so charged to court and the court has records. But the detention facilities do not inform us. It's another area, I must point it out, it's another area of concern. We have expressed this also to the authorities.
We're yet to get a reaction to the judgment from the Department of Home Affairs, but hopefully the lot of the many detained in centers like the Lindela Repatriation Center right here behind me may just be about to change. As part of the orders given by the Constitutional Court, the Department of Home Affairs is expected to file an affidavit, a report of compliance within 60 days of the judgment. From the Lindela Repatriation Center near Johannesburg, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.